Hello. Today we are going to be looking back into LINQ for Unity. If you didn't catch the previous streams, we are going to be basically building a tool that allows you to inspect a variety of things in Unity. It's working now, and I think it's pretty cool. This is going to be kind of a chaotic stream where we're going to be doing a lot of things to kind of just explore what this can do and fixing up a bunch of the rough edges because it's very cobbled together right now. Not everything is done, but enough is done that it is really cool. I've added in a series of renderers, and I've also integrated Roslyn into this, which means that we have access to the entire C# compiler as part of this. So just to give you a really quick example of how one of the uses for this, if we do camera.main, this is going to look up the main camera in your scene. And so if we run this, it's just going to return the game object, the reference to that game object that we would pull. Here you have the main camera. You can just click that and we will select the main camera object. You can right click this and do properties. There's an edit button, but that doesn't work. The intention is clicking edit will open up this panel again. You'll note this is the camera features. So this is selecting the camera component attached to our main camera. And so we can do all sorts of fun things with this. You can select colliders or anything else you want. I've done a lot more with this. The cool thing is on the World of Zero channel, we've done a lot of things. This LINQ or Roslyn compiler integration is from a previous video that we've done. There's also a mesh renderer, which is also from a previous video we've done, which means that we can do like game objects, I believe, dot find objects of type. Let's find the mesh filters. So mesh filters contain mesh data. So in this case, we want to find all the mesh filters and find the property of the shared mesh. And so this is actually going to go and find all of the mesh renders in our scene, pull out what mesh they're using, and give us a preview of every single one. The cool thing is we can individually select all these objects. So I can click on capsule and select the capsule in my scene, select the cube, so forth. But these are editable. So if I want this cube to now be a cylinder, we're done. We just switched our cube to be a cylinder, and that's all you need to do this. This blew my mind when it started working because this was so cool. But yeah, there's a bunch that doesn't work with this. None of these changes can be undone right now. So anything that you change is going to be effectively committed. Unity's undo system does not currently work with this. Ideally, we want that to be supported. So you should be able to undo most of your execution. There's going to be some things that don't quite work like just don't work that way. If you run code here, for example, I don't think we can undo that. An example would be camera.main.transform.position. And we will set this equal to how do we want to do this? Vector3.0? Sure, let's set the camera to be at 0. We do that. We will get the results here. This is not a editable field. I don't think it'll even adjust if we change this. Yeah. So this is just a static result. So we just get the position. That's not super useful, but we can actually just execute random code and just say, move this here, do this. Select these objects, things like that. That all works, but you can also select things and actually get editable results as well. It all just kind of does what you expect it to. So that's most of the cool things. There's a lot that doesn't quite work. I mentioned undo doesn't work. This edit button just throws a not supported error. That's not very good. The materials are broken. I do support materials, so if we do mesh render, I need to copy this. Find all the objects of type and get the shared material and run this. I tried to create a cube that would render here. My cube is broken. It's my triangles are all sorts of messed up. You do get editable versions of the material. So if we wanted to switch the material of our capsule, we can do that. It's just less useful because you can't actually see what the material is here, because the lighting's wrong and the preview object is not correct either. But this supports pretty much everything. It even supports things that weren't supported previously because we're doing some fancy things with Unity's custom editors. We're relying a lot on those. So game object, let's find objects of type. Let's just get all the colliders. So there's no renderer supported for this. This is not something that you can actually just go and edit, but you can actually work with these. So if we get all of the colliders here, we're going to get a capsule collider, a cube collider, and a sphere collider here. And we can right click and edit any of those we want, or select all of them in our hierarchy and get all the objects that have colliders attached to them. This is all sort of the entire point of this tool. All of the keyboard shortcuts I haven't figured out how to do yet. I think there's some complications there because I don't think both of Unity's systems work well together. So if you have Unity's old input system and you try to use new input, it doesn't work. And so there's compatibility that we need to figure out there. Ideally, you should be able to like hold shift when you click one of these buttons and add that to your currently selected objects rather than just only selecting the cube or only selecting the sphere. Other things you can do, let's do camera.main.gameObject.property of, this is a little bit funky, but we're gonna get the name of this. This kind of shows everything that's happening here, but this is going to get the main camera's name, and we can just rename this if we wanted to. So we wanted to call this the player camera. You can see it changes that in every place that it's selected. So it changes it in the string. It changes the name on the button because that's tied to the name of the game object. And it also changes it in your scene view. So all of that just works. And this is pretty much as far as I've gotten. It does a lot, and I'm pretty happy with everything that it does. There's also a select all object that will select all the results from whatever query you ran. There's 3 results here, so it's going to try to find all the game objects that have the names on the left-hand side and select them that way. This is using a string match, so it's not necessarily tied directly to the object. We might be able to change that eventually, but for now, it's just the way it works. You can also copy the queries. I want to be able to up and down arrow here to navigate between previous queries and kind of do that. Just so you can have a really quick access to previous things. There's also no hotkey to actually run things right now, so you have to actually click run. You can also close all the results. So here is all of the queries we've run so far. And you can see they were all successful because they'll have that little green thing. If we just type something that doesn't work, like camera.main camera thing, this doesn't exist. This isn't a thing. We're gonna get the exception here. You'll see it's red. Hopefully that stands out a little bit, and you can kind of detect that things didn't really go very well. You do get an exception, but it is gross. The way we're showing exception details is not good. That will change eventually, but it hasn't yet. So this is where we are. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. If there are questions, please drop them in the chat and we can run through examples or do anything. This is mostly just a stream for me to clean up a bunch of this stuff because a lot of it doesn't work. What I would like to do first, I think, is add a history. So every command we run, I want to actually append that to a file. There's a bunch of things here that I want to do, but that seems like a very useful thing. That way, even if you restart the editor, you should still have all of the previous commands you run. So if there's something you're constantly running, we can detect that and pull that up. Maybe like the last 1,000 commands, and we can do a search and be like, oh, you're typing this, we can complete these. Some of these queries can get very long, especially if you start doing wheres or selects and things like that. So the easiest we can make it, the best. Let's do game object. Find objects of type. Actually, I also added this other thing, GameObjects dot, I think it's with name or match name. That's the one. This lets you do a regex over your entire scene to find game objects that match that have a name that matches some regular expression. This is useful if you want to say find everything that has, say, light in the name. We have two objects named light, so directional light and spotlight. We want to find both of those. We can just run this, and this will get us both of those objects. So we get the spotlight and the directional light this way. So if we want to be able to edit both of their colors, we can just do get component, I believe, of the light, and do the property of color. So this will give us an editable color for that. So we have a red light and the normal directional light. So let's just make that blue. There we go. So yeah, that is the entire demo, I think, of everything I've done. Most of this was done off camera just because I was doing it at like way too late at night, like 2 a.m. Not the best time to be working. The code looks awful, but it works and it's cool. So there we go. A lot of this is also very slow, and there are a lot of weird exceptions that currently are happening. One of the most common is one with library copying in Unity. I don't know if this is specifically related to the version of Unity that I'm using. I haven't been able to track it down at all. But I'm actually using a whole bunch of extra resources here in order to get the C# Roslyn compiler into Unity. And for whatever reason, whenever I recompile, it has troubles copying that library over. And the only way I know to fix that is to restart Unity. Clearing the error doesn't work. It actually just like stops Unity and won't let you do anything. The problem with this is it's actually a relatively transparent thing. All the code will still keep working. But the way Unity works is it actually builds your library into some temporary directory and then copies that built binary over to actually use in the editor. The error that's happening is copying from that temporary directory into my current thing. And that means that I'm still running my outdated code. So one of the things that I was running into is if we change things, it doesn't work. We are no longer able to actually access any of the stuff that we wanted to access. If we start like trying to debug something and think we've solved it, it will still be broken. But yeah, this is our current implementation of the entire C# execution. This needs to be changed. It is very slow. Also, I want to actually use tasks here and use some sort of non-deterministic or whatever the word is for this, where it isn't complete. So we have some sort of progress bar that sort of shows this query is still running. That lets you do long running things, potentially allowing you to query like cloud resources and preview those and then pull them into your scene, for example. That doesn't work yet. We're not even remotely close to that, but that is sort of something that I want to be able to do, is to be able to have these long running tasks that are going to like load a scene. That is not something that is going to run very fast. So we want it to take a little bit of time. When we're doing that, we want something that is actually going to display that rather than just lock your editor. Because right now, any query you run is going to just stop Unity. And that is bad. I think we can demonstrate this. This might be a bad idea to do while streaming, but what happens if I do like while true? This is a bad idea. What does this do? Okay, yeah, Unity's frozen. Perfect. So we've completely locked up Unity. I'm gonna keep track and make sure all of my encoding still works, but this shouldn't happen. We don't want Unity to lock up while we're doing this. Instead, we should just get a result that says it's waiting for it to finish, and you could either cancel the execution and just stop it, so it will never complete, and you'll just cancel it wherever it is. Maybe if you do like an infinite loop like this, you want it to stop. So this gives you a way to do that. But I need to kill Unity because right now this this completely stops your editor. That's something we need to fix as well. Anyway, I think I've shown a bunch of the cool things. I've also shown all the problems. So let's kill this. Can I kill this? I didn't really think this through at all, did I? No, I did not. 1 second. Oh, it's really angry. Let's see here. There it is. All right. Yeah, so Unity is just eating up all my power. It's not doing actually all that much as far as like CPU tasks are going, but that's not good. So that's something we want to avoid. Anyway, that is, I think, everything that I wanted to sort of catch you all up on. So I think we can just start poking at things and seeing what we want to do. Here's all the renders that I've been working on. We have a that's just a sample mesh. That's the cube. It doesn't work. But this is our like sample mesh renderer here. This is not a good resource right now to go and figure out how to do this. I do actually have a video that walks through actually drawing meshes and materials inside your editor. Go look that up on my YouTube, and you should be able to find it. There's probably ways to make this better. I think we're still leaking some things because of the way we're rendering this. I think because when you recompile this, I think we end up leaking the render. We get a warning about that, but we'll need to fix some of that too. Anyway, there's a lot that's good and a lot that's bad, and a lot that's kind of hacky. I'm approaching this as sort of something that we want to iterate on really fast and sort of get it working, even if it's not very fast, even if it's causing a bunch of weird issues. And then we can actually use this to improve things where that's needed, rather than trying to write this really elegant thing from the start. A lot of my code is sort of all in certain places. This is a notoriously bad one. Like, the cyclomatic complexity of this is huge. It's 5 ifs deep, and there's 2 for each loops and a try. And anyway, this is gross. You shouldn't do this, but we did, and it works. So part of this is going to be like refactoring this out, making this make more sense, and just hopefully trimming it down into things that are actually composable and make a lot more sense. As we do that, we'll also be able to start introducing testing so that this is something that we can actually reliably ship, rather than having to manually test all of this. Because of the fact that you can just throw C# commands at this, it's really hard to manually test it all, because it's there's just a lot you can do with it. So we need to, yeah, make sure all of that makes sense. But yeah, there's like random UI components. This is a button that suddenly does a whole bunch of like logic inside of it for whatever reason, because I thought that was a good idea. Weird things are happening here. We need to get rid of them. There's like a data object down here, some enumerable thing. Yeah. Anyway, my code's bad, but we can make it better. Let's get back here, and let's actually work on. I don't know. There's so many things that I want to do. Oh, one other thing that is actually really cool. We can do like a new action like this, and do camera.main.transform.position equals vector3.0. This is actually going to create a new action. There's two really fancy things that I sort of added at the last second. All of the other things are sort of editable properties, which means that they are like a read and write thing. So you can edit positions and transforms and things like that. But these are special. Actions are something that give you a button. So in this case, we can actually run the action by clicking this button. And that should automatically center the camera when we click this button. So anything you contain in an action will automatically be runnable just by clicking the run command. That's useful if you need to just like have something that you can quickly rerun. If there's something like during a debugging session, you need to just be able to like click a button and do something. Maybe you want to trigger some enemy spawn or something like that. That's a way to do that. It gives you a way to kind of work with that. That's not right. The other one is more complicated. Instead of using an action, you can use a function, which I don't remember how to do. This part gets a little bit funky. How does this work? Oh, this gives you, let's do a vector3 here. So this gives you a executable thing, so you can actually pull out specific functions and rerun that function. Typically, you would get a property out of this or a field and be able to access that. Functions let you actually run this and rerun this constantly. So this is now rerunning this and pulling out the transform position. That in itself is not very useful because we're just getting the transforms position constantly. If you check this button, it's going to constantly rerun it. Otherwise, you click this and it gives you a debug statement in the bottom left. But the cool thing with this is, let's say we want to get the dot product between this and vector3 dot forward. So this is going to return the dot product of what we're running. I had it as vector3. This is going to return a float. So if we run this, no. Oh, that's because I'm wrong. Dot forward. There we go. So we're going to compare the forward vector of our camera to the forward vector in world space. And by running this, why does it keep failing? What? Oh, all right. This is wrong. I had it as vector3 again. There. All right. So let's just close all those. Open this one. If we rerun this, we should now get the result of the dot product recalculated every single time. So as I rotate this now, we should see this change and should automatically update whenever that UI updates. Right now that's only periodic. So as I'm actually changing this value, it's not updating. That's part of the editor window. We might want to do something that actually detects when these exist and make it automatically update. But the advantage of this is if you have some complex thing and you need to actually get some debugged value out, this gives you a way to read that value or execute that function repeatedly and see that being done. That is, I think, everything. Those functions and actions were sort of the final thing that I've done. They seem like a really useful thing to be able to do to kind of just either introduce debugging components or have reproducible commands that you can just execute. Being able to just constantly rerun something seemed like a useful thing. Again, these can't be undone. So you're just kind of stuck at that position now. All right, let's do history. History is sort of the next thing I think we want to do. What this is going to allow us to do is, what is it? Basically, you're going to be able to go back and forth through previous things. If you've ever run a terminal before, for example, it's going to actually give you a way to navigate between previous commands you've run. Just as an example, let's open mine and do like what's a good thing to do? Let's Unity LINQ there, and we'll go into the assets, into that, and we get all of the current stuff here, and I can navigate backwards through all the previous commands that I've run so that we can kind of have a list of things that we've done. If you're redoing normal things, this is a pretty useful way to kind of see those things. There's also reverse searching. So if you Control R, on Macs, it might be Command R, I don't remember. But this is going to do a search backwards and match things that you've done. So in this case, ls will be matched, for example, or cd, and we will get that full command, and we can just execute that. So that is a really quick way to kind of rerun things without having to retype it all. Especially with LINQ, things can get very long. I've been using the copy buttons a lot to do this. These are intended to kind of replace that and make it a little bit easier to use. For this, I think we want a new folder. And this is going to be our console state. I don't know if that's the best name for it. But this is going to store not just probably historical commands. It's probably going to be used to store like settings, for example. You can automatically select which libraries to import into this. So if you have some other namespace thing, maybe you're pulling in Newtonsoft or some other common library, you may want to pull that in and make those APIs available to you. We're going to need some sort of configuration to allow that to happen. So that's what we're going to be working on now. LINQ console history. I think. Sure. All right. Let's add something. I think really we just need a list of strings. I think that's the only thing that we need to really store here, is just a list of strings, and we're done. Commands. And let's add a public static LINQ console history. Load. And we'll add a public void save function as well. So the load is static, meaning you can just do LINQ console history.load, and then you'll get an object and be able to reference that object repeatedly. And then we can just save back to that history. For now, this is going to be sort of dumb. I'll probably be updating this a bit in the future, probably using JSON or some other format to save this. I don't know how useful this is going to be. And we need to sort of figure out if we want this to be stored in source control or not. But for now, I'm just going to throw this in the assets folder, and we're going to go from there. This is something that that is not even going to be remotely like final. It's just something that we need to get started with. So LINQ console history.load and save. Let's start with save, because that is something that we actually can just go with. And then load is going to have two states. Either there is no save file, and then we need some sort of to initialize some sort of default, or there is one and we need to create it from something. That's probably going to be done with constructors. We'll see. But for now, let's get var save location. And we're just going to do application. I don't have any of the Unity stuff in here right now, so let's just pull that in. So application.datapath is what we want. This is read-only. This is a read-only directory in the actual compiled games, but for Unity editor versions, this is going to look at your assets folder. So this is the best way to get the path to your assets folder. And from here, we can actually just save directly to our assets or around that area to kind of give us a working thing. So save location is going to just be there. Let's create a private const string history file name. Sure. And this will be, I don't know. So there's a few different things we can do. In Unix, starting a file path with a period makes it a hidden hidden file. This is useful for like configuration things because it doesn't clutter everything up unless you're specifically looking for them. And Unity kind of handles them in a weird way. It does not actually show them in your assets window. So this will just be hidden behind everything. You would not have visibility to this from inside of Unity. It would just be there in a file, and maybe you check it in, maybe you don't. But it would typically be hidden from most user experiences unless you were manually exploring this with like Windows Explorer. The downside of this is Unity, in my experience, does not play well with files that start with a period. At least from the inspector, creating a new like directory that starts with the period doesn't actually do that. So I don't know what we want for now. This is all just test stuff. We can change this name later and make it better and more understandable later. We're just going to call it our LINQ.history. Maybe not the best name, but we'll work with it. This will be our path. And we're going to use the path. What the heck? Yeah. So system.io includes a path thing that's useful for combining two different strings when you're doing path things. Typically just concatenating two strings to form a path together can get confusing because they might have, both of them might share line ending or directory boundaries, or one might and one might not, or instead of like dealing with that and trying to make everything consistent, you can actually just use this path object and it will do it all for you. So we're just going to join our save location with our history file name, and that's our save location. So this is just going to automatically combine those two, create us a file for that, and we just want to do file dot write all text. We don't have any text right now, but that's fine. We're going to create that. Our save data equals new string writer. And then for each var command, in our commands. So we're just going to iterate over all of our commands and just write them one line at a time to this list. There's no formatting. We're not doing anything special here. It's literally just line after line after line after line. Downside of this is it will not support anything that already includes new lines, and that's perfectly fine normally. This will just break them. I don't know if we want that, but that's what we're gonna do. This should be two-stringed. There we go. All right. Save data dot write line command. We'll remove the S, and there's our command. So that is everything we need in order to actually write this object to history. And if I'm doing this right, we should actually just have it working for us. This should automatically just be editable. We should just be able to work with this. I'm also going to make these commands private. I forget the. Let's do that. Cool. Commands. Sure. Loading this is going to be pretty much the same thing. We need to get the same path. There we go. Let's do. Should I just get have a save path function? Sure. This can actually be public, I think. Public string save path We'll just do this. And just return the result of that path function. There. Okay. It doesn't like what I'm doing there, so let's just do it the way that I know it will be fine with. There we go. So now we have a getter for the save path. You can just get the save path and it should just work. And now if we don't need all of this, we can just pull all of that out and do a save path down here. Now for loading, this can all go away again. And we are just going to do var commands, I guess, equals a new, not even that. We just want file.read all text. I think read all lines is what we want. And this is actually going to pull in. Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much the entire, I guess, approach that I've been going with this is everything is fine until it isn't. And a lot of this is like, I don't actually know what's useful yet. Like I haven't used a tool like this ever, I don't think. Games have always had like terminals, for example, like you could go into Half-Life, for example, and start editing things by adding in like new objects and things using those commands. That's possible, but as an editor tool, I don't actually know exactly what's going to be the most used part of this, or what's useful and what's not, and where the problems are going to come up. So part of what I'm trying to do is go really fast and find all those things. And designing things really well isn't really possible if you don't know what you're designing for yet. And so a big part of all of this current work is figuring out what are we designing for, so things can be optimized going forward. So save path. We just want to read all the lines from our save path. This should... What? Oh, we can't do that because this isn't there. Let's just make that static, I guess. Pull in all of our lines. Those are our new commands. And then we want to create a new LINQ console history. So we'll just do history equals new LINQ console history. Actually, we can just do that. Right? There. So we're just going to return a new version of this. This doesn't exist yet, so let's create that. Cool. There's our constructor. And let's just do commands. This is going to be an IEnumerable of string. It should still be compatible with arrays, but this just makes it also compatible with things like lists and anything else that you can iterate over. That seems more useful than what we had. So why is this commands 1? What the heck? All right, weird. I don't know what that was doing, but we're gonna ignore all of it and just do this. So this dot commands equals new list of strings, and we're going to give it the set of commands. What this is going to do is create a new list that we can store our commands in, and effectively remove us from whatever this list is. So we can now edit this new list without mutating whatever was passed in, effectively creating a new reference. That's important because otherwise, if we started passing the original reference in and just kind of use that, any additions or modifications to that, maybe it was cleared in a later function or something, would also affect our history, and we don't want that. We want this to be a separate thing. So this pretty much allows it to behave separately in the shortest amount of time in code we can do. All right, there's that. We're just going to add one now for if the thing doesn't exist. In this case, LINQ console history with an empty constructor. And we just want to invoke, I think, I don't do this very often, but I think we're going to just do base. Is it base? No, it's this. this, and we're going to do new list array like that. It doesn't even need to be a list. It can just be a new string array like this. There. So we're just creating an empty string array and passing that in if you do not provide anything. That's just a really basic empty constructor. It's going to create an empty history for us. And we're going to use that in this load if this path is invalid. So to detect that, we're going to do if, how do we want to do this? File.exists. Yeah. Save path. So that we're running into some issues here with the save path. We might want to cache that because that property actually is doing computation. It could introduce some issues. It shouldn't though. I'm not anticipating any problems here. So for now, I think we'll just leave it and see. But actually, nah, that's going to bug me. So we're just going to do path equals save path there. And that way we're not recreating that path and doing that string concatenation multiple times. We're just doing it once. Then if it doesn't exist, whoa, we're going to write some sort of a mess and return a new LINQ console history that's empty. There. Cool. Then we need to actually use this thing. So in our main window, inside of this gross mess of running things, we actually need a reference to our history. Private LINQ console history. For now, we're unnamespacing things. I'm just going to pull that off of this object. Eventually, all of this is going to be namespaced. We're just not there yet. So once I actually know where I want everything to be, that will happen. Just for now, it's easier if I don't. So we're not. Anyway, there we go. There's our history. When we show, how do we want to do this? I'm not entirely sure. Let's do history equals LINQ console history dot load. And we're just gonna load it there and pretend like that's good enough for us. And then where do we actually run things? There's our query. And I think we want to save things even if they don't work. So we're just gonna throw that in at the very start here. So if we're not running white space, if you're just running an empty query, we don't need to save that. That's kind of a waste. And it's just going to clog up your history with a bunch of extra stuff that you don't need, especially because if it is empty, we actually don't run it at all. So for that, we are just going to ignore that, and we're going to do history dot add something dot save. So this doesn't exist yet. We're just making this up, but I think this syntax will work for us. We're just going to add some history object and then save it. So let's create that. How do I do that? Sure. I don't know what I just made, but I'm sure it's fine. Returns an object. We want it to return that. There. So for these, I'm trying to create something that can be sort of chained. In this case, it can be chained just by returning itself. So just return this in the correct order. There we go. This is useful for actually creating those sort of chains. Like I want to add this thing to history and then save it. Rather than split that into two different lines where you're doing history.add, history.save, if we return the history, we can just do history.add save and sort of chain those commands together. There's our prompt. let's add that. So commands add first. I'm doing add first here because we're going to change the data structure we're using here. Lists are an array list. We actually want a linked list. And so the reason we want a linked list is it's actually going to make it possible for us to add things at the start and remove things from the back. So if things get too long, commands.add first. If commands.count is greater than maximum history. That's not a thing that exists right now. I'm just going to define that here. Maximum as like the first 100 things. The last 100 things you ran are going to be saved. Otherwise, we're just going to save forever. Eventually, this will be configurable. I'd mentioned other config values. That's one of them. But for now, we just need some limit. So you don't just save thousands upon thousands upon thousands of lines of code that don't actually have any value after you start running them. Anyway, commands to count greater than history, maximum history. So if there's more history elements than our maximum, we need to just remove the last one. So commands.remove last. If you're familiar with data structures, this is effectively a queue. We could just use a queue. C# has a queue object. We could just use one. I'm just preferring to use a linked list because it gives us a little bit more control. We can actually manipulate things in the front and the back if we need to do that. So that's why we're doing this. But that should be everything. We should actually have a history object now, and it should save. We're probably going to need to restart Unity here because of this error. The sharing violation on path. I had mentioned this previously, and it might be helpful if I actually show it because I think my camera covers it up. But copying assembly from temp to my library failed because there's a sharing violation. I haven't been able to figure out what triggers this, so I don't know how to fix it. But every single change I make means I need to restart Unity. And it's really frustrating. It's one of the main motivations for actually adding this history thing, because you actually lose all these previous queries that you ran. And some of these are actually kind of useful that you want to kind of keep around. So yeah, basically I'm just relying on copying the last one. Anyway, this isn't going to save history. Everything will still work here. So if I do like camera.main, this will still run, but it will not save to history. That isn't being called. Part of that is because the newly compiled binary is not part of what's currently running here. It's all the old stuff. This confused me for so long. Anyway, we just need to kill Unity and restart it. That's the best that I've found. All right. There we go. So once this starts up, we should be able to run something and get a history object to be created. At this point, it doesn't exist. We haven't saved anything. But as soon as I click run, we should hit this save path. And that should cause us to write everything out to a file. And hopefully we can just inspect it straight from Unity because of how this works. Or get data path is not allowed. Uh-oh. What did I do? On GUI. Line 49. Uh-oh. Is our history object not existing? We might need to do something about that. What's the best thing to do? If history is null, history equals link console history dot load. So if our history is null for whatever reason, this is just going to reinitialize it. I think that should solve it. We are going to need to restart Unity because of this. So that's fun. Are we? I don't think so. We did not get the library error. So let's run that. That was really slow. Part of the reason why we need to support async stuff. Also, did it not save? It doesn't look like it. Oh, there it is. All right, link.history is right here. Let's open that with code. And there we go. Camera.main is the main command there. We should be able to run something else here quickly. So new action camera.main equals vector3.0 main.transform.local scale. Is that the right thing? I guess we'll try this. Set that equal to 1, vector3.1. Cool. And we can see our history gets updated here. So there is like super basic history that works. We're not actually referencing this. There's no way to actually go back and get previous commands. But it will actually hopefully be helpful as far as going backwards and forwards throughout that and effectively navigating the entire stack of commands. One problem with this is if I do like game object dot find objects of type mesh filter this dot what do we want to do with these? We want to get property of, and we want the shared mesh from all of these. So this is just going to pull up all those meshes again. It works, but I believe we now have 3 lines here. This won't work. Eventually we're going to need some sort of serialization here to handle this. I think what I want to do for that is spin that off and do an actual video that talks about serialization rather than doing it as part of a live stream. I feel like that it will be more visible that way and less lost in all of this. But that's sort of what I'm thinking. Anyway, that is like super basic saving and loading of things. We should be pulling it back in. We can test that, I guess, by, what's the best way to do that? Restarting Unity would work. Also, closing that and reopening it would work. What? Oh. Application.datapath breaks if you call it from a, okay. This is news to me. I didn't know this was a thing. We can't actually use datapath. It doesn't like that. That's weird. On enable. Well, I guess the way to fix that is this and just remove it from that. But that seems weird. Yeah, not sure. How do we want to do this? We actually probably do want that on enable anyway. That's something we actually really probably do want to exist. Having it in an on enable function is going to actually mean that we can do things like initialize this style once rather than doing it every time the UI is re-rendered, because that's just silly. But for now, everything's fine. I'm going to work through a little bit to make this a bit less gross. What is the refactor function? Hotkey. What? Okay. What we're looking for is refactor. I thought that's what that was going to do, but it didn't do that. What's going on? I feel like I'm missing something here. There should be a way to reformat or refactor this. Because effectively what we're trying to do is extract these functions out into their own functions. What that's going to do is make it so that not all of the code is happening inside of this onGUI function. And we can actually, one, test the behavior of these buttons more easily. And two, it should make it so that we can... What the heck? All right, this is weird. Okay, this is being weird. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Edit. Leave? No, this doesn't look right. What is going on? I'm not sure. I guess I'm spoiled from having just used the thing that worked all those times. Why doesn't this? Yeah, for whatever reason there's no extract hotkey. Weird. I don't know what it is. We're gonna do it the old-fashioned way, which is just going to be a run function with the prompt. There we go. We probably don't even need to pass in the prompt. We can use the state that's provided without having to pass things in from the code that we're running. So just say run function and do everything there. So that gets created, and we're just going to pull out all of that. So at first, what? No. Okay, I'm confused even more than I was previously. There we go. Weird. There we go. So if run function, I think there's a way to actually disable buttons if they can't be run. We might want to do that if they do not have the white space. So we can actually swap that out. Basically what I'm doing right now is just a whole bunch of refactoring, which probably isn't the most exciting thing, but it has to happen. So we're gonna just do it. Bool. So can run function right now is just going to return if that's true. Can run function that. And there's a way to disable this button that I don't know how to do. I think it might be a style. Let's find out. Var run style. So if we can run the function, we're just going to use the normal style. So the way we do that is GUI.skin.button.normal. This is just going to get the normal default button skin out of Unity's UI. This prevents us from having to kind of do everything. It should just match with whatever your UI settings are for your editor and just sort of use those. We don't want to... Ideally, as much programmatic stuff as we're doing is kept to a minimum, just to avoid any conflicts with weird styles that people might be doing. Like this current font, I don't think this would work on most other people's computers. This is using a specific like Calibri font or something like that. Anyway, we're using a special font here. It won't work if you don't have that font installed. It's just not going to find it. So that probably isn't a final thing. We'll need like a resource or something. There's a hover style. There's an active style. Where is the... Isn't there one for like disabled? Hover. I don't... I don't know. None of these look correct. So that probably isn't going to stay there. In this case, we want run style dot. Is there something inside of the style that we can use now? Then how do we disable a button in the editor? I've done that before. That's something you can do. But it doesn't work. I don't actually know. We're just lost. Yeah. That's unfortunate. Editor. No, I don't think any of these are going to work either. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. All of that isn't going to happen. For whatever reason, I swear you could disable these. Unless I'm looking somewhere else. I don't see a way to do that. Oh, is this how this works? Oh no. Okay. We're gonna do it this way. Can run function is equal to GUI.enabled. Sure. This is gross, but it will work. Enabled equals true. You might need to restart Unity. Yep. All right. So that all has to go away. Make sure we've saved our scene. The annoyance of that bug. I think what's happening there is we might be the compiler that we have or that we're trying to run to access certain references is interfering with Unity's copying of those directories. There might be some overlap there in who is accessing it. And so our Roslyn compiler may be trying to access a property. That's a weird skybox bug. Anyway, our Roslyn compiler may be trying to access one of the reference libraries. And then Unity may be trying to copy over it and not able to because it's in use. That is the best guess that I have. What happened there? What? No, this isn't good. We don't have an editor. That seems like an oversight. Oh, that's not a weird skybox bug. That's a window. What? What the heck? No, how am I supposed to do anything with this? How can I even... What? that little line there that I'm trying to click on, that's not a glitch so much as that is supposed to be our window. What is going on? How? What? How? How do I? Is there some way to maximize this or do anything? I don't think so. I think it's just stuck. Close all flow. There we go. All right, it's just gone. There. Weird. Okay. We can now disable the run button. So that worked. Just doing GUI.enabled equals false. Turns the run button off when there is nothing to run. That seems useful. A lot of this is sort of trying to make this tool as intuitive as possible. I feel like that is sort of the entire point. If it's not easy to use, I don't know how many people would actually want to. Just because you're kind of writing code that gets thrown away pretty quickly. And that can be frustrating and kind of a waste of time if you're doing that very often. And so keeping the code relatively easy to keep track of and also making it something that you can just keep pulling back in seems useful. Camera.main should work. We can just run that. Also, the first time we run this always seems to take a very long time. That's because we're actually initializing all of this stuff. There might be some way we can actually preload a lot of that and get a lot of that slowness out when you run the window or do it in the background or something. Ideally, I think most of the execution is just going to be moved onto a separate thread entirely. I don't think there's actually that much that needs to happen on the main thread. The downside of that is I think we might run into issues if we are trying to access game objects from a different thread. I don't think that Unity is going to be very happy with us if we try that. Tasks might make that less of a bad idea. But for now, this is where we're at. We should also have appended to our history instead of overwriting it. So we completely restarted Unity and now we have another camera.main added to our history rather than overwriting all the previous things we ran. And so this gives us like a way to go back and grab something we ran previously and just run it. And now we get that action that we can sort of relatively easily run. I guess that's useful. Yeah, that is that. That's sort of like really basic history. One thing that I have been trying to do is you add UI hotkeys. It hasn't worked as well as I had hoped. I had been hoping that you could do like input.getKey and do like keycode.shift. As far as I can tell, this just doesn't work. So if we do if debug or if input.getKey pressed. So this should, if we're holding the left shift and we like mouse over our UI, we should see a message, but I haven't. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe it's happening and I just don't see it. But all right, we should be good. I don't think we did anything. Another thing, when you recompile, currently you lose the editor state. I need to figure out a way to fix that because this is not ideal. You just completely lose everything that you were doing if you compile or do anything. That isn't great. So what do we want to do here? I want to hold shift and do like any updates and run that. We don't get any warnings that we're actually holding down shift. That it just doesn't detect it. I don't know what the proper way to detect things is, unless there's like a current window dot auto repaint on scene change is true. This might work. This is going to cause it to automatically redraw this every single time the scene gets updated. So anytime an object moves or changes or anything like that, it's going to redraw all of our inspectors. This is probably very expensive for us, but considering how the tool is intended to be used, I think that's probably useful anyway. And so just that change alone might help us. We need to restart again. Right. But if that doesn't work, we might be able to add an update function now that will actually work with this editor window. Typically, editors are only updated like when you mouse over a button or interact with it in some way. Changing that auto repaint should have helped that. Maybe there's a repaint function that we could attach to. I don't actually know. But how does this work? Camera. If we run this, everything runs, but we do not see that we were holding down the shift key. We should be seeing like a pressed log somewhere. It's not happening. So we are going to do private void. Is repaint a thing? No, I didn't think so. All right. On update. Or is it just update? There we go. Updates. Cool. I think this is the best we can do. And I'm pretty sure updates are going to be invoked for this. I could be wrong though. Oh. We need to restart again. If anybody knows the solution for that library copying bug, that would be great. Because this whole restarting the editor thing every time it's just kind of a productivity sink. You lose a lot of time to this. Just because you have to do it, because Unity can't copy the binaries and doesn't seem to retry at all, so you just get stuck here. Let's recreate this and see if that changes anything. No. Let's just grab the main camera, run this. And we still don't get any inputs. I don't think. I should check this actually. Oh. Wait. Hold on. When did that start getting imported? We already have Newtonsoft imported? Oh. Okay. All of the JSON serialization that we're going to do in a video very shortly just got really easy because the library is already imported. It's already there. That's a JSON serialization library. Makes it very easy for you to create JSON objects to store complex data. Sort of like we're doing with history. Unrelated to what we're doing right now, but useful. I was checking to see if we were importing the new Unity input system. We are not. So I don't know what's going on. Keyboard. It's not a thing. Huh. I don't see a way that we would get input here. Like we could try some of these other things, but I don't think they're gonna work. We could try get button shift, for example. But I think this is going to lead to the same issue. I'm not entirely sure. This is something that oh, it is running now. Okay. So then why isn't get key working? Weird. Space. There we go. Let's spell it correctly. If input.get key code space. If we are holding space, we hopefully will get a message. That's all I want. This seems like such a weird thing to spend so much time on. But at the same time, it's clearly not doing the thing. So, how do we do this? Or potential thought: can input boxes hijack the input? Could that be what's happening? Because like I'm hitting space here, obviously. So we're clearly adding spaces, but we're not detecting them because we're not getting any output here. Is that happening? Well, how can we tell? All right, we're gonna go super old school. Debug.log input get access vertical. So we're literally just going to print out the vertical axis every single frame. This is a bad idea, but okay. I don't know how to connect to the bottom. It's weird. Yeah, holding up or down doesn't actually change our input. It's always 0. So the issue is not that we are not getting inputs. The issue is that those inputs don't exist. They're always null. They're always 0. How do I fix that? I've never encountered this before, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to do here. This is deprecated. What is it replaced with? That's fine. I think it's saying it's deprecated because technically GUI layouts and things used to be how you would interact with this in previous things, not for Unity's editor. We are actually interacting with a text field up here. And so I think that might be eating our inputs. That might be part of what's going on here. Never mind. Still just 0. All right. We actually have a way to do this better. So I'm gonna do the better way. We can actually use our own tool because that's what it's for. So let's do this and do like input get access vertical and run that. And do that. That should always give us the vertical axis. So right now it's just 0. Let's also do a new function bool. And we're going to run input.getKey key code dot space and run that as well. I don't have a Boolean renderer. Oh no. That's a problem. We need to convert this into a float. 1 or 0. I'll fix that in just a bit. We can add that before I finish this, but we're not going to do that right now. All right. So what this is doing is running all of these over and over again. In this case, we're going to run this, get if space is pressed, and return that. The other one is going to get vertical up and down. So if we're holding up or down, it should increase. It doesn't work when we're not in play mode, but my hope is that changes what? Okay. Well, we have history, so I can just go back and get it. That was weird. I don't know what caused all that to disappear. That's a problem too. I'll need to think about that. There's some serialization stuff that's just kind of weird. Cool. Hey, all right. Input only works when you're in run mode, but it does work. So all of that time was just to figure out that it doesn't work in editor mode. How do you do keyboard shortcuts in editor mode then? Everything that I saw said to do that. Okay, whatever. Yeah, so this stuff all works. We need a Boolean renderer. Let's do that quick. But yeah, that was unfortunate. I thought it would just work. I'll need to think about that. There's got to be some way to get inputs in editor mode so that we can do like hold shift and click to add to the selection rather than just doing whatever else. Boolean renderer. We do eventually need a render at least for all the primitive types. The Unity object renderer is sort of what I'm using as sort of a fallback for any Unity object that isn't supported. It will give you a way to actually select things. But we do not support primitive types. So we need something to at least do primitives. Bool. Dot toggle. There. Sure. I think that's the most basic we can do. We already have strings, we already have floats, we already have ints. I think floats and ints can handle the other versions of their types. So like longs and doubles should be implicitly supported. Characters are not. Enums are not. And there's a few others that I think also need to be improved. Is there an easy way to do enums? I should just check. Flags also do not work very well right now. Unity does some special stuff with flags to make them work, which we just don't deal with correctly right now. Enum renderer. Is enum a type? Can I do this? I can. Okay. What's the best way to do this? Editor GUI layout.enum. I don't know which one we want. There's flags, there's masks, and then there's the enum pop-up. they're handled different ways. So masks are used for like collision masks, for example, where Unity gives you a matrix, a 2D grid of interactions between the two different enums, for example, and you can tick different boxes, effectively turning different bits on and off. The other one is flags, which I think might be what we want. Sure, we'll go with this one, just because we can. Enum value is just value, and return that. All right. I think that's the best we're gonna do for enum editors as just like a really quick thing. There's better ways to do this probably. Enums might get more complicated just because they're used in different ways. If they specifically have the flags field, they behave slightly differently than typically enums, and so we might want to handle those slightly differently. But in order to detect if that is there, we need to do some reflection to detect that. So we're just not going to do that right now. But this should be enough to at least get us started. And we should now be able to do Booleans. So let's run that. So new function of bools. And we want to do input that get key code space. So this is the same thing that we were doing previously, but now we should be able to run this and get another check mark. And so we can turn that on. Instead of converting this into an int, we can actually just display it that way. I think that's everything. I know this has been somewhat of a all over the place stream. It was not intended to have any target. Really, it was intended to be sort of a showcase what this project is and kind of cover some of the new features that are available, and also just kind of explore and fix some of the more annoying things that I've been running into and try to do that. There'll be more. I'm hoping to get the serialization thing covered pretty quickly. There's lots of ways to do that. We're probably just going to do JSON because I think that's... There's a few reasons. One, it's easier to understand as a human, and two, it's fairly simple in source control. So if there's some reason you want to update or publish your source to whatever repo you're using, it's better than using like a binary format because you just can't understand that. So that's something we'll look into. There's a bunch of other things. Undo. Unity does provide an undo thing. There's an undo dot all of this that lets you like record objects and record how they're changing and what's going on. I don't know how to use this yet, so there's probably a video in the near future about how to use this thing, because I don't actually know how we would record undo stuff. Yeah, that's something that needs to happen because I don't actually know how to do it. And you should not need to implement undo as part of writing the functions that you're trying to execute. That is way too much work to be asking of you. It should just work. So like if you're trying to move an object from one place to another, it should automatically record that you're moving an object and allow you to undo that. That is the goal. We will see what happens. I need to figure out how to do input inside the editor. That's what I'm going to go do, but that's going to take me a while, I guess. So I'm going to go grab some dinner and go and look into that while I'm eating. But hopefully this is interesting. I'm really hoping that there's some interest here. I think that this is useful, and there's a lot of cool things you can do here. Like we were just throwing together some like input tests here. I think that that's another useful thing that you can do. There's always the super basic case of doing this. I really want to be able to just hit enter and get that. But actually get those. If anybody knows, this is a question that I do have. If anybody knows how to get this properties thing, get this inspector to render, that would be really helpful. Because that's something that I want to be able to do, is just be able to expand this entire inspector when you inspect complex objects. Because a lot of people already are designing and creating really good custom inspectors for their tools. And Unity has them for all of its own game objects. Ideally, we should just be able to use them. If you're selecting a collider or something, you should just get the colliders inspector. We shouldn't need to re-implement it all just to work with this tool. That seems like a lot of extra work. I think we could do it using reflection and go and find all of these, but I'm imagining Unity must support some way to actually look these up. I just don't know what it is, and I haven't found it yet. So if you know what that is, let me know, because that would be really helpful. But anyway, I'm going to keep poking at this. There'll be a VOD of this as well. So if you're watching there, cool. Come and check us out on Twitch. We're probably going to be streaming a lot of this tool on Twitch, just because it's a bigger project and there's a lot more to cover. So it just makes more sense to do longer form things, especially because it's not such a small and contained project. Some of the tasks don't always take like the 30 minutes or so that a video really fits into. They take hours, and that just doesn't work in a video as well as it does on a stream. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna leave it here though, and hopefully this is super interesting, and it's a tool that you will want to use. I don't know when I'm going to have it in a state where it's something anybody else could use, because right now it's still pretty unstable and kind of questionable. But I'm working on it, so that's in the near future. Anyway, thanks so much everybody who actually tuned in. I really appreciate you all hanging out in chat and watching what I'm doing. So until next time, see you internet.